Waterbeds were cool, rollerblading was all the rage, and I got rid of my entire vinyl collection. They called it the 80s.
That video room ain't going to be a youth hangout.
You're in the media room. My name is Bob and welcome to my channel. Well, today will be a little bit of a cautionary tale for you, a vinyl cautionary tale, if you will, that takes place in the 80s. But before we go to the 80s, we got to go back to the 70s and the start of my vinyl pursuits. As I was living in England from 1970 to 1974, my dad was stationed at RAF Lakenheath for the U.S. Air Force, and I was lucky enough to do my entire high school career at RAF Lakenheath American High School. And it was a great place to live. It was a great place to go to school. And it was a great place to collect vinyl because the base exchange, the department store on base, if you're not familiar with military installations, there was a commissary where I worked. That was the grocery store. I sat groceries there for, quarters and dimes. Sounds like the Grapes of Wrath or something, right? It wasn't that bad. And then there was the base exchange, which was like the department store, and they had an electronics section inside and also a record section. And I picked up some really nice vinyl. So I would work at the commissary after school for quarters, sacking groceries, take the money, rush over to the base exchange before it closed, plop it down on the counter for a tasty slab of vinyl, and then try to sneak it into the house. I don't know why I had such guilt associated with collecting vinyl, but I just wanted that nice, shiny black vinyl. And I got some nice stuff. Everything there was technically, to you, would be an import. To me, it was just what was available. British pressings, pressings from Holland, German pressings. Now, I didn't know anything about record collecting back then. I was just buying music for the sheer joy, the sound. I got all kinds of, imports and first pressings. Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality, Dark Side of the Moon. My mom brought that back from London, from Virgin Records on the day it was released. So I know that was a first pressing. And just so much more, and my collection was growing and growing and growing. Around 1970, my parents had gotten me a Motorola console stereo. It was this weird thing that was on a rolling metal stand, and it had speakers on brackets that fanned out. They were really thin and lightweight, and then there was a turntable that had no basic adjustments or anything like that, and then AM, FM bands. And I would listen to pirate radio stations at night. You know the movie Pirate Radio? Did you ever see that? That's like a real thing. There were pirate radio stations on ships off the shore of England. And so those were my nights. And I would spend my mornings before I went to school listening to records. And I would get hyped up to pitch in Little League games by listening to Grand Funk in the afternoon after school. And at night, I'd put these Koss headphones on that had these really stiff vinyl ear cups that were cold and hard, and the whole thing was like a vice grip on my head. And I would listen to pirate radio all night, and music from the United States, rock and roll from England and beyond. And so it was kind of a fun time, especially for a guy like me that was a little bit of a recluse. That movie Almost Famous, they talk about records being your friends. My records were my friends. And so I was having a good old time, building my system, adding a Toshiba top-loading cassette deck so I could record songs off the radio and stuff like this. A lot of you folks have had the same experiences, just with a different background, That's how we all kind of got started, with lo-fi. And then, I got to college stateside in 1974 and started building a new system with a Marantz 2215B receiver and some, eventually I had some L26s, I think, from JBL, Pioneer turntable, and that was kind of the beginning of my college system. And I continued to collect vinyl during that time at Syracuse University and then the University of Texas, where I ended up graduating. But I got to take you now to 1983, because this is where this cautionary tale begins. I was flipping through, I guess, Rolling Stone. I mean, I can't even remember back in the early 80s where we got our information. There was the Rolling Stone. There was, that was about it. I mean, I think that's all I was reading, and maybe Playboy? But I saw an ad somewhere. It may have been Playboy, because I remember it being in color and the ad being kind of slick, for the CDP 101, the Sony CDP 101. It was 1983. Think about it, 1 year before the release of the Macintosh. The Sony CDP 101 CD player came out, the very first consumer CD player. Now, I saw this ad, and I had to have it. I didn't know how I was going to get it, but I had to have it. And it just so happened that my father, at the time working for a military contractor, was going to take a trip to Japan. He was on some junket. He was going to go to Japan, and I asked him if he could slide into the Base Exchange and see if they had the Sony CD player in stock. And if they did, could he bring one home? Well, I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a long shot, but I asked anyway. Sure enough, about a week later, he comes home and he's got a box under his arm, and it's the CDP 101 in the flesh. He told me it cost $700, and that was Base Exchange prices. That was without tax and probably a little bit of a deal. Now think about it. With inflation, that $700 today would be the equivalent of about $2,050, something like that. And he never asked me for the money. He handed it over. He had no idea what it was. I had no idea what it was, other than I knew it was a new way to listen to music that was supposed to be indestructible and better and digital and all the things that they had advertised. Now, a lot of that stuff turned out to be false, right? I can't tell you how many CDs over the years I had to throw away because they got scratched. Or they had some layer of underneath the main layer was a condensation or something, and the thing just wouldn't play. I mean, it was pretty rare, but over the years I've probably thrown away a half a dozen to a dozen CDs that just stopped playing for any given reason. So all the ads about you could run over it with a car and it's indestructible and all that was kind of not true. So I started my CD collection. I had to feed that machine. Now, I think I was the first person in Austin to have a compact disc player. And I know this because there were no CDs to buy in Austin, Texas at the time. I had to listen to this for a couple of weeks. This came with the machine. This is the Sony CD Sampler Volume 1 Jazz. And I can't remember who's on here. Tommy Tedesco, Lionel Hampton, Shelly Manne, Bill Waltrus. I don't know if this is worth money. I mean, it's got to be relatively rare. Who kept this? But I played it for a couple of weeks until I went to the record store, the best record store in town, Waterloo Records, to see if I could buy something to feed this machine. They had 3 CDs available. Now, when I say 3 CDs, I don't mean 3 versions of CDs that had multiple copies in the store. I'm talking about 3 individual CDs available to purchase. That's why I think I had the very first player in Austin. They were kind of shocked when I walked through the door and asked. They had Van Morrison's Beautiful Vision, they had Journey's Greatest, and they had Michael Jackson Off the Wall. I went with the Van Morrison because I'm cool like that, right? And man, I played this thing over and over. And I can remember nights just staring at the digital display, that bluish kind of LED light that was coming out of this thing, and I would just stare at it. It was the closest thing, the CD player was the closest thing to a miracle that I'd ever experienced. I had no idea how it worked. I knew it had something to do with laser beams, but I couldn't figure out how the lasers would hit these pits and these dashes or whatever, and then read its own light. Like I had no idea. I was just in awe of the CD machine. It was a miracle. And I loved it, and I loved the fact that I was on the cutting edge of technology for the very first time in my life. I had something to brag about. And it was marvelous. It was fantastic, and all I wanted to do was feed this machine music. I wanted to feed it music. And so I was willing to do, well, I shouldn't say I was willing to do anything. That's going to get me in trouble. I wanted to find ways to get more music to feed the CDP 101. I mean, it was amazing. It had a remote control, the door feel, the knob feel, the push button, everything about it. The fact that it was digital, and I started thinking, you know, records are over. Vinyl is over. I was tired of hauling it around anyway. I had to haul it from England. I had to haul it from school to school and dorm room to dorm room and then apartment to apartment. And it was degrading before my very eyes, or ears, I should say. I was done with vinyl. I saw no future for it. My mind wasn't thinking about investments and the fact that I was sitting on all these British and German first pressings and things like that. Oh, by the way, this Van Morrison was I later learned was a Target, technically a Target. So those of you that collect CDs know that these are coveted, and a lot of the early CDs I bought were German Target labels. All right, back to the thing. So I had relationships with people in record stores around the city, and I started trading off my LP collection because I thought vinyl was over. I started trading my vinyl collection away for CDs. Now, when I say traded, I gave away my vinyl collection. I would trade 5 LPs for 1 compact disc. Sometimes 10 LPs for 1 compact disc. I didn't care. Now this is gonna make your heads explode out there, but I can remember at one time trading my entire Rolling Stones collection for Rolling Stones double CD greatest hits package. And then later on, the Beatles stuff started rolling out. Now we look back at that, we know it wasn't very well mastered or very well transferred to CD format. But you know, when the Beatles stuff started coming out, I was trading my stuff like crazy, my vinyl, until I had just very few records left. I mean, I was a complete idiot. I'll say it now. I'm not that bright. I'm not that bright. 10 vinyl albums for 1 CD. I had Vertigo labels. I had first pressings. I had Led Zeppelin hot pressings. I had Dark Side of the Moon. What was that, on Harvest, I think? When it came out in England? That my mom hand carried from Richard Branson's only record store in London to my bedroom. Gone. All gone. White Album, first British press. I have no idea where it is. I don't possess it anymore. I don't own it. I did have it. So the point of this video is hang on to your records because you're going to regret it later. But I also wanted to have an opportunity to show you some of the survivors, some of the records that I did keep that didn't get traded off. And these are all originals. These don't have any particular value to a lot of people. They're important records to me for one reason or another, and I thought I would show them to you. I've got about 10 here, give or take, and so I'll just go through it, and I call these the survivors. Now this will probably be one of a multi-part video where I show you a few other survivors, but I think all in all, I probably, out of 1,000 records that I owned when I started trading them off, I probably kept 50, and I didn't keep the ones I should have kept. Where's that White Album? Where is my first press, British, embossed, top loading, black sleeves, posters, 8x10s, serialized? Where is it? I don't know, and it's driving me insane. I don't think I would have traded it. I don't think I would have sold it, but I can't for the life of me find it in my collection today. It is one of the great regrets and disappointments of my life. Here's the first one I wanted to show you. This one I kept. Ian Hunter, You're Never Alone with a Schizophrenic. And you'll notice it's autographed. That's another reason why I kept it. It was a very special night for me when I got this record. I think it was at a place called Zebra Records on Lavaca in Austin, Texas. And I got to meet Ian Hunter and the great Mick Ronson. Well, they're both great, okay? Come on, all the young dudes. But I got to meet the great Mick Ronson as well. And we actually chatted for quite a bit. He was quite friendly. He was a total British gentleman. And I'll never forget that about Mick Ronson. And you should never forget it. He was a total British gentleman. And he didn't have to spend 5 seconds with me, but we talked for a good 10 minutes about rock and roll. And they autographed this, and I will never, ever sell this. It's very important to me. It's not a bad rock and roll record. Cleveland Rocks, all that stuff. But now, see, you got me going. I'm going down a wormhole. I haven't pulled this record out in a while. It's on Chrysalis. Let's see. Yeah, it's a keeper. It's a keeper. I did keep some of my Beatles. I have some of those. Most of those 50 records I have downstairs that are survivors are Beatle records. I could not find myself to trade, even though I can't find that White Album. The rest is intact. British pressings of Revolver and Rubber Soul and all that stuff. So here's one I don't see in many people's collection. It's called De Moisty Songs. I'm mispronouncing that. It's from Holland, and I think it means the love songs. And this is a compilation that came out. It's EMI. It's not some flunky K-Tel thing. But I always loved this painting on this cover, and I thought this one was a keeper. It's got 20 tracks on it. There's 10 tracks aside, so they've got to be extremely compressed, even though the songs are pretty short. This thing is packed. The grooves are packed in on this one. But I love the cover, and it's got every major Beatles love song on it, from Yesterday to Let It Be, and many more. There's the back cover there. Those are the 8x10 pictures from the White Album that I don't have anymore. Well, no, I've got, 24 copies of the White Album now, except I don't have the one I want. Oh, speaking of the Beatles, I also picked this up in the early 80s and never traded it. It is the UHQR of Sgt. Pepper's, and I haven't listened to it in a while. I got to see how it stands up to the UHQRs of today, but I still have the original receipt from High Fidelity Incorporated. I have pressing number 886 of 5,000. It cost, what did it cost in the day? This would be a $125 record today. Let's see when I bought it. Got the receipt here. Actually, my girlfriend at the time bought it for me because she had a job and her name is on the receipt. $1126.82. It was delivered at the price of $50. So there you go. Do the inflation calculator on that and see. But yeah, there it is. It's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere. I kept that one. As long as we were talking about Beatles, I thought I'd bring that up. All right, here's a record that I bought basically on the strength of the cover alone, and it's a very famous record, and you'll recognize it, Born to Run. I was going to the University of Texas. I can't remember if this came out in the spring. I would imagine this came out in the fall. It's kind of a fall record. I could be wrong, but I remember having mono at the time, but still going to classes. I was like the Walking Dead, walking up and down the drag adjacent to UT there, and I remember seeing this record cover in the window of a record store, and I thought, I gotta have this record. Look at that. Is that not, I mean, you've seen it a billion times, but is that not a thing of beauty? And I was a little bit kind of like had that stoned feeling from having mono. And I remember hearing somebody talk about Bruce Springsteen and playing at the Armadillo World Headquarters and how great he was. And I always thought it was hype. And I'd seen some photos, some concert photos, and I thought, oh, this is just hype. These people are going on about this guy, but they don't, what do they know? And I bought this record in my mono state, And I went and bought this record, and I put it on my stereo, and I listened to it every night for 6 months. It got me through mono. It's a great headphone album. I would just listen to this over and over again. I'd never heard a record that was as much like a movie as this record. And by the time I got to Jungle Land, I was wiped out every time. And so, you know, I was kind of in that state where I wasn't myself, and this whole thing just seemed like a dream. You know, I was like in a dream state. I was tired, I was worn out, and all I wanted to do is hear this record over and over again, and I did. And so I kept this copy. This is first press for sure, because as you can see there, it's got the printed label. They, you know, you guys can read about it. You know that. You know, if you know anything about Born to Run, you know about this version, where they had to put a sticker and correct some of the production names. Add John Landau, I think. Also had the half-speed master that I never got rid of. And then speaking of Springsteen, I never got rid of this. This is my original copy of The Wild and the Innocent E Street Shuffle. It's also first press, you know, because all the text is white. On the second pressings, where it says the E Street Shuffle is yellow. But this was weird, and I got this new shrink wrapped at a record store. And when I opened it up, this was inside. A stapled, Xeroxed copy of the lyrics. Like it was done on an office Xerox. Typed. I assume on an IBM Selectric or something. Like, why was this in a sealed, shrink-wrap copy of The Wild and the Innocent and E Street Shuffle? I always remember that I had this. It's got footprints on the back. God knows where it's been. It's starting to yellow. It's stapled. This is not something that you would normally find in a record jacket. I have no idea. I've done research on this. I've looked online. I cannot find anything on this. If you guys know, leave it in the comments. If you've heard of this or you find something, why copies of the Wild and the Innocent have printed lyrics, Xerox lyrics inside the jacket, let me know, because I can find nothing. I can find nothing. I mean, it had to be the label or something. I mean, this is a lot of work for someone to do, for an individual to do, and how would it be inside? It's one of my great rock and roll vinyl mysteries. Well, why this was in there. I'll never know. Unless you find the information. Always thought this was the better of the rock operas. Never was a big Tommy fan. I thought it was a little childish and weird. I loved Quadrophenia. I thought it was great. I listened to this a lot. And I kept it. This one I didn't trade. It was such a nice package. It's a little long in the tooth now. I didn't take very good... Well, none of us took very good care of our records in the 70s. We didn't think of records and recordings as investments. I didn't. Came with this huge book. Again, it's kind of like a movie. Speaking of the movie, I had the movie soundtrack, and I got to meet Sting once. I actually got to interview him, and he signed that the Quadrophenia soundtrack for me. Now, this is a record you may or may not know. It is probably one of my top 10 records of all time, and it's called Leon Russell Carney. I love the cover. I loved it the day I bought it. I can remember where I bought it. I bought it at the Bass Exchange, but at a different base that we were visiting. It's on the Philips label. This is a Holland pressing. I'm going to assume that it's a first pressing in Holland, if that's a thing. I've never seen anything else on the Philips label, but it's one of my favorite headphone records of all time. I don't know why. It's such a personal thing. I want to get so close to the music that the only way to really listen to this appropriately is on a good set of headphones, if you got them. I love this record. I think it's just amazing. There may be a clunker or two, but maybe not even. I wouldn't even call Queen of the Roller Derby a clunker. But man, you know, as a fan of Leon Russell from the days of Mad Men and Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and concert for Bangladesh. And I've got several copies of that record now, but I'm glad I kept the original. Here's my copy of Van Morrison's Hard Nosed the Highway. I don't know why, why do I not have any of my Stones records, but I have this Van Morrison record still. And look, I had a dog at one point that tried to eat it. Has one of my favorite lyrics in here where he goes, when Frank Sinatra sings against Nelson Riddle strings and takes a vacation. I don't even know what that means, but I thought they were pretty cool lyrics. I have the red vinyl copy of J. Geils' Bloodshot. I will forever have the red vinyl copy of J. Geils' Bloodshot. Peter Wolf, the third greatest front man in rock and roll history. I put him behind James Brown, Bruce Springsteen, then Peter Wolf. Here's a record that I thought over time was going to, probably pay for kids' college or something. It hasn't quite gotten that that expensive, but the original first press before they recalled them and reprinted the jacket of Rolling Stones, Some Girls. There you go. We'll call it the lawsuit edition. Happy to have it. I don't think it's super valuable, but always thought it might be someday. Another record I bought on the strength of the cover alone. I was between classes at the University of Texas. I went to Inner Sanctum Records, which was just one block north of the university, and I saw this on a display out front, and I went in and I took the record to the counter. I had to have it. How dare this guy call himself Elvis? Who is Elvis Costello? Why does he look like Buddy Holly? And what is he doing with his stance there? And what is that weird guitar? Like, everything just spoke to me, And I took it up to the counter. I knew the guys there, and he's ringing me up. He goes, "Hey, why don't you come back to the office with me?" Now, I don't know what kind of weird, what kind of proposition that was, but I followed him back to the office, and there sitting on the desk was Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe. Right there. Right there. Literally minutes after I had seen that cover for the first time and bought the record, I was in the same very small room with Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe, and they were nice enough and kind enough to sign the back of this. I will always have this. I will always keep it and cherish it. To have those two guys in the same room as they were making history. Making history. I saw them that night at the Armadillo World Headquarters for $2.50. I don't think Nick was on the bill, but Elvis was. And it was a quickly put together show. It wasn't advertised, and it was a last minute thing. $2.50 to see the first tour of Elvis Costello and the Attractions. There it is. Gorgeous. So happy to have that. And then, almost at the end here, my favorite Beach Boys record, and it's on reprise. I never know how to... Holland is the name of the album. This is German, I'm sorry. This is a German pressing of Holland. Odd thing about this is when I bought it at the Base Exchange, it didn't have the EP. I always wondered, because I kept reading this thing, this album includes one 12-inch and one 7-inch. And I never had the 7-inch. I still don't know what the 7-inch looks like. It wasn't on the inside. I got one record, had lyrics on the inside I didn't ask for, and then I bought another record and it didn't have the 7-inch EP, so I kind of got shafted on that. I don't know. Must have been a fluke. And then, of course, the final, Double Fantasy, John Lennon. And this album will always take me back to that Monday night when John Lennon was assassinated, and I went to Sound Warehouse that night because I didn't know what else to do. Sound Warehouse was a big box record store in our market, and we just all hung out there not knowing what to do or what to say. And we a lot of us bought this record that night, and I'll always keep it for that reason, because I remember exactly where I was and when it was that I bought it. And you know, that's enough to say about that. So that's the cautionary tale. You know, the records are the bookmarks, the post-it notes of our lives, you know, and you don't know what you've got until they're gone. And in my case, I gave them away, so it's extra painful. Hang on to your records. They may not become valuable, and you know, someday when we go to that big sound warehouse in the sky and get to meet John Lennon, our kids are going to take our records and sell them by the pound, and they will end up in a dollar bin somewhere. But that's okay. You got them now. You can enjoy them now. And that's exactly what you should do. And don't let anybody try to trade you one of anything for 10 of those records, okay? With that, I'll say goodbye from the media room, and we'll see you next time.